My name is Minsa, and I live in Austin, Texas. I'm 36 years old, and for the past 10 years, I thought I was building a life with my husband, Robert. We met through mutual friends, and back then, he was charming, attentive, and full of dreams that mirrored my own. I fell for him fast and hard, believing we were equals, partners who would face life together. But there was one thing I didn't fully understand when I said, I do, his sister, Ruby. Ruby was everything to Robert, and not in a normal, close sibling kind of way. She could do no wrong in his eyes. Every decision we made seemed to revolve around her, her needs, her wants, her happiness. If she was in trouble, Robert dropped everything. If she needed help, he was there before she even asked. I wanted to believe this was just him being a loving brother, but over the years, it became clear that Ruby wasn't just a priority, she was the priority. At first, I tried to be understanding. Families are complicated, and I didn't want to come between them. But it wasn't easy. There were times I felt like an outsider in my own marriage, like when we had to cancel our anniversary trip because Ruby's car broke down, and Robert decided to use the money we'd saved to buy her a new one. Or when he invited her to stay with us for a few weeks after her divorce, and she ended up living in our guest room for nearly a year. Still, I kept convincing myself that things would get better. Robert loved me, I was sure of that. He just didn't see how much his actions hurt me. So, I stayed quiet, tried to compromise, and kept pouring myself into our life together. After all, we shared everything, a house, a future, even a joint savings account we'd been building for years. That account was my safety net, my proof that all the sacrifices I'd made were for something meaningful. But, as I would come to learn, even that wasn't safe from Robert's devotion to his sister. A year passed. It wasn't an easy year by any means, but it was transformative. I had to rebuild my life from the ground up, starting with nothing but a suitcase and a broken heart. At first, I stayed with an old friend who welcomed me with open arms, letting me crash on her couch until I could find my own place. I took on extra hours at work, pinned down my budget, and slowly, painstakingly, began to feel like myself again. I thought about Robert often during that time, but not in the way I used to. The love I'd once felt for him was replaced by anger, then sadness, and finally, a kind of acceptance. I realized I hadn't just lost my savings or my home, I lost the illusion that Robert and I were partners. He'd shown me who he truly was, and I couldn't unsee it. So, when my phone rang one afternoon, and I saw Robert's name on the screen, I nearly didn't answer. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the decline button. But curiosity, and, I'll admit, a bit of spite, got the better of me. I swiped to answer. Minsa, his voice came through the line, frantic and panicked, so unlike the confident man I'd once known. I need your help. Please. I leaned back in my chair, caught off guard. Robert? Yes, it's me, he said quickly, as if I might hang up at any second. Listen, I'm in trouble. I don't have anywhere to go. Ruby, she won't help me. She said she can't. I've got nothing, Minsa, nothing. The words hit me like a wave, but not in the way I expected. Instead of anger or satisfaction, I felt nothing. Just an empty, calm detachment. What happened? I asked, my voice steady. He let out a shaky sigh. The house. Ruby's house. It's gone. I took out loans to pay for the property taxes and repairs, but I couldn't keep up. The bank foreclosed on it. And then I lost my job. Everything fell apart, Minsa. I'm staying on a friend's couch, but they're kicking me out tomorrow. I don't have anywhere else to go. Please, can I come stay with you? Just for a little while, until I get back on my feet. There was a time when his words would have shattered me, when I would have dropped everything to help him, no matter how much he hurt me. But that time was long gone. I had learned too much in the past year, grown too much to fall into the same trap. "Robert," I said, my voice soft but firm, "why aren't you asking Ruby for help?" "I did," he snapped, his desperation bubbling over. "She said she's struggling herself. She doesn't have the money or the space. You're my wife, Minsa, you're supposed to help me." I couldn't help but laugh, a bitter, hollow sound. "Your wife? Robert, you kicked me out of our home and told me to leave your life, remember? You made it clear that Ruby was your priority, not me." "That's not fair," he said quickly, his tone pleading. "I was under a lot of pressure back then. I made mistakes. But I'm still your husband. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" For a moment, I was silent, letting his words hang in the air. Then I took a deep breath and said, "Robert, I spent years being second to your sister. I stayed quiet. I sacrificed. I bent over backward trying to make things work with you. And when I finally stood up for myself, you threw me out like I was nothing. I won't let you use me again." "Minsa, please," he begged, his voice breaking. "I have nowhere else to go. I'll do anything. I'll make it up to you, I swear." But I shook my head, even though he couldn't see me. "I can't help you, Robert. Go to the person you chose over me. Go live with Ruby, the sister you gave everything to. Maybe she'll figure something out for you." "Minsa," he cried, but I'd already made up my mind. "I wish you the best," I said simply, and then I hung up. As I set the phone down, a strange sense of relief washed over me. For the first time in years, I felt free. Robert's problems were no longer mine to fix. His mess was no longer mine to clean up. I had finally chosen myself, and it felt good, empowering, even. When I hung up the phone that day, I thought it was over. I thought Robert's desperate call would be the last I'd hear from him. But I underestimated him, or perhaps I overestimated his pride. 2 days later, there he was, standing on my doorstep. He looked nothing like the man I had married. His suit was wrinkled and ill-fitting, his hair disheveled, and his face was gaunt, marked by sleepless nights and desperation. For a fleeting moment, I felt a pang of pity. This was a man I had once loved, a man I had built my life around. But then I remembered, the nights I cried myself to sleep, the humiliation of being thrown out of my own home, and the betrayal of him giving away everything we had worked for, everything I had worked for, to his sister. "Minsa," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Can I come in?" I crossed my arms and leaned against the doorframe, blocking his way. "What are you doing here, Robert?" He sighed, rubbing his temples. "I told you, I have nowhere else to go. I thought maybe if we could just talk, I could explain everything. Fix things. Fix things." I echoed, my voice sharp. "Robert, you didn't just break things, you destroyed them. You took everything I trusted you with and handed it over to Ruby without even asking me. And when I dared to question you, you called me selfish, jealous, and kicked me out of the home I helped build. So no, I don't think you can just fix things." He flinched at my words, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. The anger I had buried for so long, the hurt I had tried to suppress, was bubbling to the surface, demanding to be heard. "You didn't just hurt me, Robert. You made me doubt myself. For years, I thought I wasn't enough, that if I just tried harder, loved you more, sacrificed more, you'd finally see me. You'd finally choose me. But you didn't. You never did." He opened his mouth to speak, but I held up a hand to stop him. "Don't," I said firmly. "Don't tell me you're sorry. Don't tell me it was a mistake, because you knew exactly what you were doing, when you drained our account, when you bought that house, when you threw me out. You made your choice, Robert, and now you have to live with it." Tears welled up in his eyes, and he stepped closer, his voice trembling. "Minsa, please. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But I need you now. I'm begging you, just give me one more chance. Let me stay here, just for a little while. I'll do anything." I shook my head, my resolve unshaken. "You don't need me, Robert. You need Ruby. She's the one you've always chosen, the one you've always prioritized. Go to her. Let her take care of you the way you've taken care of her." "She won't help me," he said, his voice breaking. "She said she can't. Minsa, you're the only person I have left." The irony of his words wasn't lost on me. After everything, after all the times he had chosen Ruby over me, I was the one he turned to in the end. But I wasn't the same woman he had kicked out a year ago. I wasn't the woman who would bend and break to accommodate him anymore. "You made it clear, Robert," I said, my voice steady and calm. "I was never your priority. And now, you're not mine. I spent too long picking up the pieces of my life, rebuilding everything you tore apart. I won't let you drag me down again." "Minsa, please," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. But I didn't waver. I stood tall, stronger than I had ever felt before. "You need to leave, Robert. I can't help you, and I won't." For a moment, he just stood there, his shoulders slumped, his face etched with despair. Then, without another word, he turned and walked away. When I closed the door on Robert that day, it wasn't just the end of a conversation, it was the end of a chapter in my life. A chapter filled with pain, sacrifice, and a constant struggle to feel valued. And as that door clicked shut, it was as though I had sealed away all the doubts and insecurities that had haunted me for years. The days that followed were strangely quiet, almost peaceful. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next betrayal. I wasn't trying to prove my worth to someone who never truly appreciated it. I was just living, and it felt good. I threw myself into the life I had rebuilt over the past year. My small but cozy apartment felt like home now, a place that was entirely mine. I had started painting again, something I hadn't done in years, and my little studio corner was filled with canvases and brushes. It wasn't about being perfect or creating something impressive. It was about finding joy in the simple act of creating. I also leaned on the people who had supported me through everything. My friends had become my family in ways I never expected. They were the ones who picked me up when I felt like I couldn't go on, who reminded me of my strength when I doubted myself. We spent evenings laughing over wine, going to concerts, or simply sitting together and sharing stories. Work, too, became a source of pride. I had pushed myself to grow in my career, taking on challenges I once would have shied away from. With every accomplishment, I felt my confidence build, piece by piece. But more than anything, I found peace in my solitude. I wasn't lonely, I was free. Free from the weight of a toxic relationship. Free from the constant need to please someone who couldn't see my worth. I woke up every day with a sense of purpose and went to bed each night with a calm I hadn't felt in years. Every now and then, I thought about Robert. I wondered where he was, what he was doing, if he'd managed to turn his life around. But those thoughts didn't linger. He was a part of my past now, a lesson I had learned the hard way. And while I didn't hate him, I also didn't regret the choices I had made. One evening, as I sat on my balcony, watching the sun set over the Austin skyline, I felt a sense of pride swell in my chest. I had done it. I had walked away from a life that no longer served me, rebuilt myself from the ground up, and come out stronger on the other side. For the first time in what felt like forever, I was truly happy, not because of someone else, not because of external success, but because I had chosen to love and protect myself.